You are about to experience an awesome Kali Linux hacking tutorial from 2015 showing you how to get Kali Linux set up in a virtual environment which you can use with almost any operating system, and how to then get the basics of using Kali Linux in the Linux command line. This is an amazing hour-long tutorial that goes into great depth about exactly how to do it step by step with screen capture. This is part of the complete hacking course where you can go from beginner to advanced on Udemy with me, Jerry Banfield, and Ermin, who will instruct you and guide you through installing all of Kali Linux and getting it working. You can get this course for $199 on Udemy, or you can get it a lot cheaper on my website if you go to jerrybanfield.com/Udemy. You can see that exact URL at any time by going to my channel. It's right on the cover of my channel. It's in the link on this video. So without any further ado, let's get started on this Kali Linux installation tutorial.
Hello everybody and welcome to this tutorial. Today I will continue with the installation of Kali Linux within a virtual environment. You might have noticed that I have two screens on which it is written Kali Linux, and they are exactly the same except one has a bigger font and a zoomed in picture, so to say. So over here on the left side, this is my virtual machine, the window that I'm moving now. This is the actual virtual machine. And the window on the right side, that is just a zooming in app that I have installed in order for you to be able to better see what I am about to show you here, primarily because I don't have guest editions installed on the virtual machine, and you cannot install them until you actually install the operating system first. Therefore, I can't zoom in anything. I cannot perform any operations of a kind, and you can see that the font on the left side is rather small and a bit difficult to see. Therefore, I will perform the work there on the left side, and you can monitor what I am doing on the right. There is no difference between left and right in terms of actions, only in terms of font size. Anyway, I'm just going to go ahead and scroll down to install, press enter, that is what we want, and the installation procedure is underway. By the way, if you boot into live version, the password for the default password for root is just root in reverse, so TOOR. Just a bit of a brief mention there, a bit of extra info that I wanted to throw in there, might come in handy from time to time. Anyway, pick whatever language is suitable for you. You can also pick the uppermost option where it says C, no localization. So if you want a greater degree of anonymity or something of a kind, you can even pick that. But for the sake of this tutorial, there really isn't any need. And even if you do pick a language, I mean, if a lot of people pick English. So that will not footprint you or anything of a kind. So just press enter, and here you can actually choose a country, territory, or area. Well, I don't know, you can choose whatever you want here. I'm just gonna go ahead and click UK because it immediately offers me a British keyboard that I use. So that's very nice in terms of settings, but again, you could have chosen no localization and this you would not be asked any of these things. Well, for keyboard you probably would, but for the country, area, or anything of a kind, you would not. In any case, even if you don't pick the right one here, it doesn't matter. Later on, after the installation, you can configure it any way you like, but it's very nice to do it straight away, saves a bit of work later on. Anyway, the installation is now underway. I'm just gonna unbind my mouse. Seems to get stuck in a loop there. Basically, you bind and unbind your keys by simply pressing the right control key. That is how you control the mouse. Oops. Just move this a bit so you can see it a bit better. Expand. Nope. There we go. Anyway, there's some auto configuration going on now. Nothing really noteworthy, so to say. Let me just change this a bit. There we go. And you can pick a host name here, unless you have some sort of specific preferences, and you actually have a registered host name or something of a kind, which you do not want to use here, by the way. You can just leave it as default. You can type in you can leave Kali, or you can actually write whatever you want your computer to be called. So I'm just gonna leave it. I'm just gonna leave the default, but you can, as I said, you can write whatever you wish to write there, no problems. So let's just go overhead on to the continue. By the way, you don't have a mouse option here while you're doing this installation. So pressing tab switches between fields and options. If you press space, that means you're marking the field, and tab means switching fields. So you use tab, space, and enter to actually call a function to execute something. In this case, I'm just going to say continue. Here you can type in your domain name. No, I do not want a domain name at this time. Keep in mind that you can configure this later on as well, should there be a need for it. Just click on continue or hit enter. Now, root password, I would suggest picking something ridiculously complex and complicated. And a lot of people worry that they won't remember their passwords if they're long and complicated or something of a kind, but assign a certain logic to your password, something that reflects the way you think, and then the password can gain on length and you can still manage to remember it. So for example, you can insert a certain word that you use or that you're attached to or something like that, something that you like, but you don't need to type the word, you don't need to spell the word correctly in English language. Rather, instead you can spell it incorrectly and then add, I don't know, like exclamation marks, question marks, greater than signs, lesser than signs, at sign, and so on and so forth. But figure something that reflects your logic, your way of thinking, and make sure that it is above 8 characters. Like, above 8 characters is a must have. It needs to contain capital letters, uh, a few of them, not just one. You need also a different form of signs. You cannot use just one sign. That's not a good idea. You need to use like 3 or 4 of them in a mixture. The more the better, and don't just type in a word in English language and then type in numbers and then type in signs. So you are already assigning a very strict order, so any brute forcing attack will go much easier if you do something like that. Rather, instead, try to have a mixture, try to randomize the position of the types of characters that you're going to put in to your password. Give some thought to this. Don't just type in something at random. Don't just type in something easy here. Just give some thought to it. For the time being, for the sake of this tutorial, I'm going to use one of the dumbest passwords possible. I'm going to type in test. That's going to be the password of this virtual machine, and I'm going to hit the continue button. But as it's going to ask you to verify it by forcing you to re-enter it, and there we go, it's going. But once again, I emphasize, use a strong password above 8 characters plus, with characters and capital letters as well. So now we have partitioning methods, and if this was my main machine, if this was my host machine, I would definitely do this manually. I would want my partitions to be configured in a certain way, but since this is a virtual machine, I'm just gonna go ahead and say guided use entire disk. It doesn't matter to me, as there is only one partition anyway, and it's 138 gigs. It's pretty much better like this, as we don't really have any legit need for anything of a kind unless we wanted to set some sort of encryption or something of a kind. Press enter. All files in one partition, recommended for new users. Sure, we can do that. You can separate home partition, you can separate all of these partitions. For example, this is something that I did on my host machine. You have a lot of things that are separate, and my main drives are also fully encrypted. So it would it would even if I lost my laptop or it got stolen, it would be really difficult to access pretty much anything. Even the BIOS is locked, so you can't even reinstall it. You would literally have to open up the laptop, take the BIOS battery out, which is underneath my main processor, and you're more likely to basically permanently damage the motherboard than you are to actually remove and put back that battery in order to reset the BIOS. It's, that's one of the very nice fail safes for devices, especially for compact laptops. But in this case, we don't need any of that, primarily because such configuration and such things are done on the host machine. You encrypt your partitions there, you lock the BIOS there, and so on and so forth. While on the other hand, with virtual machines, there's no need to do anything of a kind, primarily because the host machines are the fail-safe. If that fails, everything else will fail. So you don't need to worry about it. You don't need to add those unnecessary layers, I would say, primarily because they're going to slow you down in the greater scheme of things. So press enter, finish partitioning, and write changes to disk. Before I do that, let me just go ahead and explain our partitioning scheme here, our partitioning layout here. So you have primary hash 1 primary 126.5 gigabytes space f space ext4 space slash. Now all these things have a meaning, but what you need to know is that, like in Windows you have NTFS partitions. In Linux you have ext4 partitions. They are a bit faster. That's one thing that goes in the favor of Linux. And you also, during the partitioning during the partitioning of the disk with a Linux system, there is only one partition which is a must-have, which is an absolute requirement, and that is this first partition that I have selected. Its marcation is just slash, that is the root partition, and you always need to configure it. Always. Without it, manual partitioning will not work. You will get error messages saying that you must specify a root partition. Down below we have swap. Swap is basically a failsafe method. So when you run out of RAM memory, you basically tell your system, okay, you can have this portion of the hard drive and you can use it as RAM, which functions in a very slow manner, but it will prevent your machine from crashing. Usually swap partitions are configured to the they are the double size of your RAM. My RAM is 8 gigabytes, but here by default the computer has assigned 4 because this is a virtual machine, and if you remember at the beginning I have assigned 2 gigabytes of RAM to this virtual machine, so it has just multiplied it by 2. It wasn't exactly 2, it was just above 2, and it has multiplied it by 2, so I get 4.3 gigabytes of swap space. Now, on most of the modern systems, on most of the modern computers, you will not require swap partitions. Even though if you don't make it, you'll get a warning, but rare are the cases when you will need a swap partition, when you will waste all 8 gigabytes of RAM or something of a kind. I mean, it happens to me from time to time, but usually if it happens, there's something wrong with the system. I don't want it to continue consuming resources. I want it to stop there. Anyway, now that you know that what some of these things, what some of the options here mean, you have marcation for the disk here. It's SDA, but we'll get into that later as we configure the system. So you also have some other options here. It says configure encrypted volumes, configure logical volume manager, LVM, configure RAID, and you can go back to guided partitioning. So these are all very nice options that come for free, and you might think, oh well, that's no big deal or something of a kind, but believe me when I tell you these things, in proprietary operating systems, they cost a lot of money, while here they are free and generally work better. What we will be interested today will not be RAID because we don't actually need it. You can configure encrypted volumes as well. I will demonstrate at a later time encryption methods. You don't need to encrypt your volumes in a virtual machine, but you can encrypt certain files or folders if you don't want to grant access to them. However, my hard drives here on my host machine are encrypted, so I am pretty safe in that regard. And I'm just going to go ahead now to the bottom, press enter, and finish partitioning and write changes to disk. Excellent. So now, oops, let me just move this a little bit so you can see it. Basically, it is asking me for a confirmation. So if you continue, the changes listed below will be written to disks. Otherwise, you will be able to make further changes manually. Now, it is informing me of the changes to be made and telling me basically that all the information will be lost should there be anything there. And you can see that by default it is set to no, so that you don't press enter by mistake and erase pretty much all the data on your disks, because this installation, this ISO file that you're installing, it does not know that it is being installed on a virtual machine on which nothing pretty much exists and there is nothing to be lost. So write changes to disks. Yes, go ahead and continue with the procedure. It is now, the installation process is now underway, and this is gonna take a while, I can tell you that much. So while this is going on, I just want to go ahead and pause the video here and finish this tutorial. In the next tutorial, once the installation is complete, I will actually get into Kali, start configuring it, and introduce you to its interface. In any case, I bid you farewell, and I hope to see you all in the next tutorial.
Awesome work. You just completed the first lecture in this tutorial. It's a free preview from the complete hacking course, and what you're doing is going through section 4 right now. You just finished Kali Linux installation within a virtual environment, and the next lecture is Kali Linux installation after it's running and getting started using it. You get that for free right here in this video on my YouTube channel, and I appreciate you watching it. At any time, you can get the complete course and ask questions, which has over 16 hours of HD video at jerrybanfield.com/Udemy.
Hello everybody, and welcome to this tutorial. I have Kali Linux machine here running. I have left the installation process in the last tutorial because it was quite frankly pointless to just sit and wait for it to finish, primarily because Kali Linux installation, it tends to be a bit longer than the installation of other Linux operating systems, primarily because of the prepackaged tools that come with it. However, there were a few screenshots that I have made that some of the options that you were asked while the installation process was going on. So there were just 3 of them. I'm just gonna go ahead and open them up here. So the first one that happened was that I was asked, do you want to use a network mirror to supplement the software that is included on the CD-ROM? This may also make this may also make newer versions of software available. I said no, because I'm gonna do an update as soon as I finish the installation process and as soon as I configure everything in the proper way. That's basic. The update is the part of the configuration that I'm going to do, so it doesn't matter. No, I do not want to use any mirrors or anything of a kind. I'm just gonna say no and go ahead and proceed with the installation. So next up is the grub. So grub bootloader, it is asking me, do you want to install grub bootloader to the master boot records? Yes, I do. Just click on it, as this is the only operating system on this machine, on this computer. there's nothing that I can mess up by installing the grub bootloader to the master boot records of the first hard drive as it is stated here in the instructions. You can use the grub bootloader in order to configure multiple dual boots, or I don't know, you can boot 3, 4, 5 operating systems, as many as you like, as many as your hardware can support. Not at the same time, of course, but at boot time you will be prompted and asked which operating system do you wish to boot. That's also one of the options that you can have with grub. But aside from that, just click yes there, and there's a final one. It simply states that the installation is complete, and if you have used a CD to complete this installation, or a USB or something of a kind, you will need to remove that media and reboot the system in order for all of this to function. So that would be it. I was asked those three very simple questions. You have the answers here. Just go through them. It will not make a difference in the final account of things. Just going to go ahead and close this, and now I'm going to go ahead and log into my Kali Linux virtual machine. So the username is, this is actually one of the rare occasions. Actually, this is pretty much the only occasions where I log into GUI with root. But as you can see, as you will soon realize, in Kali Linux, everybody just logs in with root, primarily because you are not using Kali Linux to browse the web or something like that. You are usually using it 99% of time to perform some sort of an attack, and for all of those tools, you need to be pretty much for all of those tools, you need to be a root user or have root privileges. There's most of the time there's no point to have any other users on a Kali Linux distro. So type in root, press enter, password was test, press enter, yours is whatever you appointed it to be. Of course, if it's a virtual machine, you don't need to worry that much, but if it's your main machine or something like that, and Kali is generally not recommended to be your main desktop machine, that's not a good idea. Rather run it as a virtual machine. Okay, so first I need to do a few things like updates in order for me to be able to install VirtualBox guest editions, so that we may use full screen and that we may use share clipboard and so on and so forth. Just go ahead and change this, open up my terminal, set the view. This is non-technical stuff. This you can do. This you can configure any way you like. I'm just zooming it in for the purposes of this tutorial so that you may see it better. But before we can do updates, before we can do anything, we must verify that we have connectivity to the internet. So ping, I don't know, yahoo.com. Here we go. Nothing is happening. So I cannot ping yahoo.com, meaning that I don't have exit to the external network. I cannot access the internet. That's a pretty big problem, because pretty much whatever we do, we will need internet for it, internet connectivity for it, in order to download packets from the repositories, to perform updates, and to conduct scans, possible scans, and so on and so forth. So just go ahead and click on devices, find network settings, and here you can see it's set by default. It will be set to NAT, but you don't want the NAT. You want bridged adapter, and you want to choose your adapter here. Mine is P8P1. See what yours is, and click Allow VMS, virtual machines. So okay, if you don't know what the adapter on your machine is and you are using a Linux system, just go ahead, open up your terminal, and type in ifconfig. Here you will be able to see a listing of adapters that you have. So you have LO, which is loopback, you have P8P1, which is my Ethernet connection. This is for some virtual machines as well. And I have VLP2S0, which is my wireless interface. So I know that for a fact that I'm using P8P1 primarily because my network manager tells me that I am. You see, connected to P8P1. This is also a better way of actually checking what you are connected to, which adapter you are using. So just open up your network manager in the upper right corner and look at P8P1. It says connected. Your network manager's position can vary depending on how you've configured your system. By default, it will be in bottom right corner, but that is easy enough to find either way. Let's just go ahead and close this terminal. Now that we know, now that we have actually configured our network, have we? Yes, we have. But still, I'm pretty sure I won't have internet connectivity. Let me just try ping again, and you see it is simply not working. So there is a problem once again. So let's just go ahead and check the Kali Linux Network Manager, and it says wired network but device not managed. That can be a problem, and that is a general problem which you will face with wired interfaces pretty much all the time. There's a relatively easy fix to it. You just navigate over in the terminal, you type in cd, which stands for change directory, to etc network manager. Let's see what's in it. Excellent. We have network manager config.conf. I'm going to go ahead and type in nano, which is the text editor that I'm going to be using, and then type in networkmanager.conf. Press enter. There we go. It opens up the configuration file. You do need to be root in order to make any changes here. It says main plugins, if up down, key file, if up down, managed equals false. So where it says false, just delete this and type in true. Control O to save, press enter, Control X to exit. Now we need to actually restart our network manager. So just go ahead and type in service network. There we go. Network manager restart. Stopping and starting. Excellent. Connection established. You are now connected to if up down ETH0. Let's check the connectivity. So ping yahoo.com. Excellent. So now we have internet connectivity, and pay attention to these steps here. They're quite important, not so much for the ethical hacking part as they are to actually setting up the environment, because setting up the environment itself can be troublesome. You can encounter multiple problems, bugs, etc., and then instead of having to go from one forum to the other trying to find the solution, you can just go through this tutorial. Just pay a bit of attention, and I will show you pretty much how to resolve pretty much all the issues that you might encounter, because I myself am doing I have done a fresh install here, and I would be encountering the same problems that anybody else would, and I would like to go over them. Because more likely than not, if you are performing a virtual machine installation, you will encounter similar problems as I have. Although, should you encounter any other problems, please feel free to pose questions, and I will be more than happy to provide any answers that I can. So let's just go ahead and clear the screen. And now that we have internet connectivity, I would like to perform some updates which are necessary. Believe me, you need to perform regular updates of the system, because you will find that certain things will not work after a while. So let me just change the directory, clear the screen again, type in app-get update. So I could do this with one command in Fedora, but here I'm going to need two of them. So it's picking up things from the repositories. Excellent. Now I need to type in app-get upgrade. Press, and you see it says after this operation 73 megabytes of additional disk space will be used. This is this last sentence here that I am marking. And that is quite a bit in terms of updates. I mean, look at all the packages. These are all the packages that are to be updated. List goes on and on. Well, there we go. It starts from here and it doesn't end anytime soon. It goes all the way down. So anyway, just type in yes. You don't actually need to type in capital Y. You can just type in Y, press enter, and the update process will start. Now, depending on your internet connection, this might take shorter or longer amounts of time. I will end this tutorial here until the updates actually finish, because I don't want to be standing here in front of this screen. But in any case, these updates will finish until the end. You're not going to be posed any questions at a certain point of time during the update process. You might be notified of some things. A screen might pop with some text. that's perfectly fine. Just you can read through it and then close it. Those are README files specifying the characteristics of certain packages and what has been upgraded. But don't go ahead. Don't go about just reading it there. You can close it later on. If you wish, you can do further exploration and actually discover what each of these packages contains. In any case, we will continue this process in the follow-up tutorial. Until then, I bid you all farewell. Hello everybody and welcome to this tutorial. Today I will introduce you to the Linux terminal and show you some of its basic functionalities. So in Kali Linux, terminal icon is located in the upper left corner, this black thing. So just click on it and there you go. You have the terminal up and running here. By default, it opens up a root terminal in Kali. So if you want to, usually people want to configure it, but if you don't want to configure anything else, this is perfectly fine. You don't actually need to do anything else. However, 99% of the time, people will configure the terminal to suit their own needs and purposes. For example, I will almost always increase the font size so that it is clear and visible and that I have a better overview of what I am doing at the moment. And it also reduces eye strain according to some articles. Anyway, so just go ahead and right click anywhere on the terminal itself, not on the bar, but on the terminal itself. And then you have show menu bar. Now we can see it here. Go ahead and click on edit. You can click on profiles as well and create new profiles here by just clicking on new, giving it a name, and then configuring it in the preferences. However, we're going to be configuring the default profile since there really is no need to create any additional ones. Go ahead and click on profile preferences. And here you have a great deal of options. One of the first ones that you will see is that you can use a system fixed with font. So this is not good. You see, this is very small. You do need, I always need to change that. If that's fine for you, you can keep it like that, but I always change it. And I have monospace 20. If you click on it, you can change the font size here. If you wish, you can change the font that you're using, and that would be it as far as this place is concerned. You have some other very simple options here. It says show menu bar by default in new terminals. I generally take it. I think it's a good idea since you always need to do something like open up a new tab or something of a kind, but you don't need to. You have the cursor shape here. It says block, I-beam, underline. Just want to show you how it looks like. You can view the terminal as the changes are applied. So you have a block and you have an underline. I prefer a block. You can use whatever you wish. It will not affect you. It will not affect you in any technical sense, that is. Have title and command. We don't actually need to change anything there. You can change the title if you wish. We have colors. So I think that this color scheme is appropriate and fitting for me, but you can change it any way you like. You can customize it to the point of extreme. You can change the text color, the background color. You have the color palette here, so you can do whatever you want here. You have built-in schemes. So you have, it says white on black. I can say green on black, or oops, sorry, cancel. I can say green on black. Does it have blue on black? Nope. Black. Oh, this one's bad. I wouldn't be able to work on this one. So let's just leave it at black on white on black. Sorry. This is the best color. This is one of the best color schemes. Personally I use on Fedora blue on black, but I'm just gonna leave it as it is here. No need to actually change anything. Now in background, you have three features here basically. You have solid color like this one here that you are seeing, and you can choose a background image. You can download anything you want from the internet pretty much. You can configure it to be transparent or image background. And also you have the ability to have a fully transparent background. And if you click on transparent background, it's pretty much the same as having a background image, except in this case, excellent, I'm just going to configure it to transparency levels, and that's pretty good. except in this case, your background image will be your desktop image pretty much, depending on where your terminal is. In scrolling, there's an important feature here. It's scroll back. So you don't want to have 512 lines. You want to go ahead and click on unlimited unless you're severely limited in terms of RAM and unless you're typing in a large amount of commands or something of a kind. But in any case, it's better to have unlimited, especially in not only in environments such as these, but rather instead in cases such as these. You don't need to do anything here in terms of compatibility. I'm just going to go ahead and close this, and I have selected a transparent background. And you see this only works for a desktop image. It doesn't actually show icons or anything of a kind. If I open up my web browser, it's not going to show it in the background. It's still going to keep the desktop background image, so the desktop wallpaper, should you wish to call it so. There's a slight delay when it goes about in the update, but it's fine. Doesn't bother us in the slightest bit. Maybe I will change this later on during the tutorial, see how I like it, but I just wanted to give you an option so you can do whatever you want with it. In any case, you can go ahead and click on File and Open Tab. I'm just going to go ahead and open myself 4 tabs, 3 new ones and one that I already had. So here you can switch in between them. It's very nice. There are no complications. For example, if I press open up a new terminal, I gotta click here and then I gotta click here, and usually you're gonna have, I'm just want to show you what it's like to have 4 of them. So yeah, this is not actually manageable, especially because you don't know what you are doing on which terminal. People sometimes split their screens into terminals. I sometimes do that. It's very nice, but we will deal with that a bit later on when we get into some serious stuff, when we actually need multiple terminals. But tabbing these terminals, it's very nice, primarily because you can actually see what you're doing on each one of them in the header. See, these things that I'm selecting, that I'm clicking on now, they are headers of the terminal, or so you can call them. And if I, for example, in this terminal, I'm going to go ahead and say I want you to go into home, change directory to home, change the working directory, that is. And if I change it here to var, and if I change it here to var logs, and if I want to go here to TMP folder. Excellent. So on each of these tabs, in their headers, I can see where I am. So this one, it's home. This one, it's TMP. I don't need to click on it to know. This one is log. So I can know what I'm doing in every particular terminal. And even though you can have a program running or something like that, it's still going to write it out in the header, and you're going to get some extra information there. It's very nice, very useful, and it's going to help you out a lot as we progress through this course and as we get into more complicated stuff. Anyway, I just want to introduce you to the Linux terminal. We have done some work with it before during the installation of VirtualBox and VirtualBox guest editions, but basically there I've just given you the command and you're gonna basically just rewrite it or copy paste it, and that's going to be it. But here I will, in the follow-up tutorial actually, I will start explaining the fundamental Linux terminal commands, the most common ones, the basic ones, and there you will be able to see the logic of things and how this Linux terminal works and functions, because once you actually learn that, it gives you a huge amount of power. All the power of an operating system rests on its terminal, because it's a direct interface to the kernel of the system, and it's a lot faster than the graphical interface. Now, one more keynote that I would like to make here. Once I teach you how to use the Linux terminal, and once you get into habit of typing in commands, you can use them for a wide variety of purposes. You not necessarily need to use these things for pen testing or something like that. You can use these commands for network administration, or you can use them in order to troubleshoot problems with the system, and so on and so forth. So you get a far wider spectrum of options in terms of jobs or something of a kind, as opposed to just learning something that you can only use for pen testing and nothing else. In any case, I bid you farewell, and I hope to see you in the next tutorial. Hello everybody and welcome to this tutorial. Today I will go over a few basic commands which you will need in order to follow this course through. Now these basic commands they are for they're used in order to navigate within the terminal or through the file system to figure out where you are at the moment, to copy things, move things, get listings of files, folders, see the contents, remove them, change the ownership of files, or change the modes of files. You will see shortly what I mean. So first off, we have cd, which is change directory. So if I just type in cd slash home, I am going to navigate over to my home directory. CD stands for change directory. As I said before, you are literally changing your working directory. If you type in cd double dot, you will always go one step back. So double dot is always the previous folder. Bit of a shortcut there. You will use it fairly often. Next up we have ls. ls shows you the listing of the current folder contents, but you can also use ls slash, for example, home, and you get the listing of a specified folder as well. Typing ls in and of its own will give you the listing of the current folder, as opposed to typing ls and then a path to a folder which will give you a listing of a specified folder. In addition to that, you also have ls-l, which will give you a long listing. So it will tell you who the owners are, the size, the date, the type, the permissions, and so on and so forth. However, one of the more common usages of ls is -la to show the hidden files as well. You might notice that I am not using ll like I generally use in Fedora, because bash ll command not found. I guess I could install it here as well, but it doesn't really matter. It performs fairly similar function as ls does, but it's a bit faster to type in. So I'm just going to go ahead and clear this. Next up is pwd, which prints working directory, and you might find this a bit confusing, but slash in all Linux, Unix-like systems, it simply refers to the root directory, to the beginning, to the root directory. So your main, from where all the files are located and from where everything begins, so to say. But let me just make it a bit clearer. I'm going to navigate over to home and then do pwd. You can see that I am in home at the moment. So print working directory does exactly what the name itself says. It prints your current working directory. Next up, we have our cp command, which we already have used in order to copy VirtualBox guest editions from one place to another. Fairly simple. You type in cp path up. Let's not do it like that. Let's do a real example. So if I, for example, go ahead and type in cp vbox guest editions, Linux edition, sorry, .run, and if I, let's say, want to copy it to somewhere, let's say that I wish to copy it to var. I will delete it, of course, and I'll show you how to do that as well, but it's fairly simple. And if I want, well, I don't want recursion, I just want a verbosity. There you go. So cp vbox, you specify what you want to copy and where you want to copy it to. Keep in mind that you could have actually typed in here a folder, a full path to this VirtualBox guest editions.run. You didn't actually need to be in the home directory. And this -v option gives us this. So it tells us what was copied where. Very useful option. Let me just show you what would happen if I didn't have that. Oops, just like this. Nothing. There's no output or anything of a kind. Now this is fairly simple when you have one very small file and you don't really care, but when you have a large file, let's say 20 gigabytes or so, and you are copying it, you're just going to have a blank screen below. Nothing will be happening. You will not be able to figure out that whether the copying process is going on or whether it has actually crashed, bugged, or something of a kind. So just pass a dash V option, which is always useful to have simply because the machine actually tells you what it is doing. Now, you might have noticed that all of these commands, more or less, they have their own arguments which can be passed to them in order to modify what the command does. You can view a listing of these arguments. You do not need to memorize them all. So just let's take an example of CP. I'm gonna dash dash help. So this is a universal way of getting help on a particular subject within the terminal. You type in the command space dash dash help, press enter, and you get a listing of possibilities. So I know it looks a bit messy and a bit difficult to see, but you don't actually need to look at all of these things here. You just scroll upwards, and there you go. You can see all the arguments. They are listed clearly here. You have the argument here, and then you have an explanation of what that argument does. For the time being, you're not going to be able to memorize all of these, but over the time, as you practice more and more, and as you start doing, and as you start actually using these commands, you will be remembering more and more and more and more without actually wishing it. Basically, you'll be caching the information, so to say. Anyway, over here in the upper part of this help menu, you get usage. So in usage, you get the format or the syntax of the command. So basically, CP, you pass an option, and then you specify your source and destination. Very simple, no problems there. This is universal for all of the commands. You can always use the help menu. However, in addition to the help menu, you also have man pages. So if I type in man, and I'm gonna use a command pwd, man pages on pwd basically give me a download of information. You can see, okay, obviously it gives you the name, it's called synopsis here, but basically the syntax of the command. You get a description, full description of what the command does, full description of the arguments. You even get the author who actually wrote it, some notes, copyright, and some references to something else as well. This is a very short man page because pwd is a very short command and a very basic command. But for example, if I was to type in man, grep, you can see that the man page is a lot bigger as I'm just scrolling down, and it seems to be on end. Grep is a multi-purpose command which I will show to you in a moment, but I just wanted to show the difference between a basic and a more complex command. Let me just go ahead and clear the screen. Next up we have move. So MV, that will cause a folder to move. This is how you rename folders to, or files. So let's just go ahead and navigate over to var, where I have actually copied this file. Excellent. So if I say move VBox guest edition, Linux editions, I can move it either to some different folder under some different name, or I can just rename it within my current folder. So if I just type it in, I don't know, let's go random is not so random. I'm just gonna rename it to that and say .run. You can put whatever extension you want. Of course, it won't function the same, but I am just showing you the way of renaming a file. And if I do ls again, you see that vbox linux editions.run has been successfully renamed to random is not so random.run. I can also do this. I can, for example, move random is not so random to my home directory, and if I do ls and then specify a path to my home directory and press enter, you can see that I have actually moved it here. But unlike the copy command, it doesn't retain the original within wherever the source might have been. So once you move it, it's gone from the source folder. However, it's going to appear in the destination one. Also, a tricky way when you delete something with move, when you move something over something else, it's so difficult to recover, if not impossible. Also, be very careful with deleting files in Linux, because once you delete them from the terminal, it's next. I mean, you will not be able to recover them. Basically, there are some complex procedures that might give you the fraction of what you wanted to recover, but if you remove it from the terminal, it's very, very, very difficult. It's not like Windows or something of a kind. When you delete something in Windows, you can always recover it. Basically, you didn't even delete it, nonetheless, something else. You just don't see it. But here, when you delete something, it's gone permanently. So take great caution, take great care, but don't be afraid. I mean, over the time, over a certain period of time, these things become second nature to you, and you will take it into consideration without even thinking about it. So let's just go ahead and clear the screen. Next up, we have cat. Now, cat gives us. Well, let me show you what cat does. So, oops, I cannot cat the random. Because it is not there, of course. So let's just navigate over to home and let's cat. Random is not so random. And you see what it does. It actually shows you the listing of. This is a bit of a longer file. So it shows you all the entire contents of that file, whatever that might be. Not for, this content is not pretty at all. You can't basically read it like this, but doesn't matter. Let's just create another file, and I'm just gonna cat it. So Nano is my favorite text editor from the terminal. You will need to learn how to use terminal text editors because primarily you don't want to be switching back and forth between GUI text editors and working on something in a terminal. It's extremely time consuming, and plus here on Kali Linux you can actually edit things with root. However, if you are, for example, using some other distribution or something of a kind, most of the GUI text editors will not be, you will not be able to run them as root. You will get an error message. So that can be a bit problematic. That's why you should always learn how to use text editors that are terminal text editors. So just type in nano and type in the name of the file that you wish to create. So for example, I'm just going to go ahead and type in test. This is going to be a test file. No need to give it any extensions or anything of a kind. And there we go. Now we are in the nano text editor. So here I can, for example, write some text. Some random text goes here. Let's just do that. Okay, so you have a wide variety of options down here. Well, maybe not a wide variety, but certainly a good amount. So this is this caret sign X. It simply means Control X. So if you press Control X, you're gonna exit. Control O, write out. That's basically save. You don't need this. Where is basically the way to search things. So Control V, search, and no, let's say random. Press enter, and there you go. It's gonna point to random. It's going to find it, no problems. Previous page, you don't need that. Next page, you're not gonna be that engaged with it. So cut text is also very nice because it allows you to actually remove large portions of text at a relatively fast rate. So if I just say Control K, it's gonna remove the current line where the cursor is, not what you have selected with your mouse, just so you know. Let me just bring that back. And I'm just going to go ahead and continue talking about this in part 2 in the follow-up tutorial. Until then, I bid you farewell. Hello everybody, and welcome to part 2 of this tutorial. And now let's go ahead and save the file. So press Ctrl O to output to the file. It says file name to write. You can actually modify it here, so you can type in some letters or whatever you want. You can change the name here, or you can even change the extension if you want. But there is no need for the time being. I'm just going to go ahead and save it as test. Just press enter. There you go. It says wrote one line. Control X to exit. There we go. Clear the screen. And now I'm going to use cat command to get a listing of this particular file, which is far more reasonable than the previous one, which you couldn't read. The cat command, by the way, was functioning properly, but it was mostly a binary file. Therefore, it gave you a listing, but you couldn't really read anything from it. So let's just go ahead and type in cat test, and there we go. It says some random text goes here. That is the text that we have typed into the text file and test file, and you can cat it like this. These things are very good, especially with files that you want to make sure not you do not want to change them in any way, and you don't want to make any accidental changes or anything of a kind, and you want to quickly see what is located within that file. There is another way of doing this. Basically, it's ls, and let's go ahead and navigate over to Etsy apt ls, and here we have plenty of files to work with. So let's just take sources.list as an example here. So if I do cat sources.list, I'm gonna get everything that is within that file as before, and it's gonna be listed in my terminal here, there to stay. It's not gonna go away anywhere. But there is another command which I can use. Let me just go ahead and clear the screen. It is called less, and if I type in less sources.list, I'm gonna be prompted with a new tab where I can actually view things here, not a new terminal tab, but a new workspace within the terminal itself. And when I press Q, it's gonna exit and nothing will be displayed here. So very nice in terms of being neat and organized, and so on and so forth. So less and cat, very nice things, but you can use, for example, cat sources.list, and then the command that I have previously mentioned is grep. Grep means basically you pull something, you grab something from something else. Now here's what I mean by it. You type in cat sources.list and you type in a pipe. This symbol here, it's called a pipe, which basically states whatever the output of this is, pipe it to the whatever command comes here. So I'm just gonna type in grep, and let's say I want to type in src. Press enter. Excellent. So it will only print lines that have src in them. Linux is case sensitive, so when you are grepping, it's gonna check the case of the letters, whether it's lowercase or not. But you can give it an ignore case. You can type in like this, -i means ignore case. Oops, my bad. -i to ignore the case. You're gonna get the same output because there are no different things within this file, but you get the general idea. So this is how you would use cat with grep in order to pull things out of a file. Very important. This is a huge part of the Linux terminal. Filtering through text files, primarily because we're going to be doing large network scans, and we will want to create files from which we will be able to pull useful information, which we will later in turn pass to other tools to do something with. Anyway, let me just go ahead and clear the screen for the time being. You also have echo, so echo, and I give it the quotation marks open. Let's say I am alive, close quotation marks, and it will echo these words. It literally is an echo. You type something into it and it echoes them here. Well, let's just go back to the home directory now, get a listing, and use exactly the same command, echo live. By the way, you can scroll through the previous commands by using arrow key. So up arrow, using the up arrow key and down arrow key, you can scroll back through your previous commands and you don't need to retype them. So I am alive, and I'm going to insert this. So I'm going to use a greater than sign and type in test. So this will echo I am alive into test. And if I do less, I'm going to use cat test. You see, it has replaced the contents of the test, which was some random text goes here, into I am alive. Very nice command to have. You can change variable names, variable values with echo, and so on and so forth. We will use this a bit more as we progress through the course, and I don't really want to get in depth here, primarily because later on when we have clear examples that directly relate to what we are doing at the moment, which is basically pen testing, then you will see more advanced usage of pretty much all of these commands, especially grep. We have touch. Touch is a quick way to create files. So for example, I can do touch and I can say file 1, file 2, file 3. Press enter, ls, and you see it has immediately created 3 files. So touch is a very quick method. Oops, a bit over my head there. Anyway, touch is a very quick way of creating any amount of files that you wish, and you can specify folder paths. You can create this file in home, this one in var, this one in var log, and so on and so forth. Anyway, down below you have mkdir. So if I go ahead and type in mkdir, it's make directory. So you are making some sort of a directory. Let's say the name of this directory will be place to be. And if I get ls, there we go. It states that this file is actually a directory, which is a place to be. I can even navigate to it and say place to be ls. There is nothing in it, but get the idea. You can make directories in such a fashion. Now chown, if I type chown, it allows you to change the ownership of a particular file. Now, since we only have a single user here, which is root, there isn't really any point in doing so unless we create some other new users, but we're not going to do that as we don't need them. But just to show you how this would work, for example, if the owner of a file was not root, and if you wanted to change it to root, you would do the following. So chown, and then you would type the username, colon, the user group. So the user group and the username are usually the same on your home PCs, unless you're on some bigger server or something like that. And then you would just specify the name of the file. I don't know, you can type in test. There we go. So it will change. It will effectively change the ownership of file test to the username root, who is from the user group root. And if I do ls, you can see here it states who the owners are and which groups actually own the files as well. So if I clear the screen, there is another more used command. It's called chmod, and this command allows you to change file permissions. So this is something that you will need to use on a daily basis and quite often, primarily because, well, you see, if I have an executable file in Linux, for example, let's just go ahead and edit. Well, actually, we don't need to edit it. We can type in echo, and not like that. Hello, close quotation marks, and I want to output this to test, and I want to move test to test.sh. sh is basically an executable, one of the scripts that's a bash script for Linux, that in such a way you can automate tasks. We will deal with it in greater depth as we proceed through the tutorial. You will need to be acquainted with bash scripting, definitely, but bash scripting is very similar to the terminal itself, so pretty much all the commands that you use in the terminal you can use in bash scripting as well, basically just combining a bunch of them in a file. And now I want this to be my executable, but you see, the way to start executables is /, as I have stated previously. That's a command to start any executable. And if I type in test and I press tab, it doesn't give me a list of possibilities. Why? Surely now test.sh is an executable, but no. You see, it doesn't have a permission to be an executable file. You see here the difference. That just take a look at this file and take a look at this file. This one is green, this one is not. And now look at their permissions. So you see it has a marcation that it is executable for all groups, users, etc., while this one up here, test.sh, does not have such permissions. you need to change that, and the way you change it is chmod, and you type in plus X. So if you want the file to be writable, you type in plus W. If you want it to be executable, plus X. If you want to be able to read the file, plus R. Very simple. There is also a way of doing this with numbers, so you can type in 755. You don't try remembering all those modes. Whatever you need, you basically go on the net and check. It can be quite complicated, but these three you need to know. It's plus W, plus R, and plus X. And also 777, which is a global mode. This is the mode that is not recommended for actual usage, but you use chmod to actually test or troubleshoot things. For example, if you want to be absolutely sure that certain actions are not being prevented due to file permissions, you change the mode of those files to 777, which is the global mode that anybody can do anything with the file. And if you still have an error message, you know that it is absolutely not related to anything in regards to permissions. So those four things you do need to know. So let me just go ahead and type in plus X, type in random, not random, it's not so random. Type in test.sh, press enter, and if I do ls/la once again, you will see that test.sh is now executable. Let me just run it, and there you go. If I run this, it's gonna echo hello onto my terminal screen. Now there's a bit more to go, not much more left. There is just one more command that I would really like to show to you, and that can be a very dangerous command indeed. It can mess you up in ways you can't you can't even begin to imagine yet. That is the command rm. So rm is basically remove. And once you remove things with this command, it's next to impossible to recover pretty much anything. So if I type in rm test.sh, it's going to remove it and it's no longer going to be there. But if I go ahead and navigate over to place to be and I don't know, touch test, I'm gonna make a new full file there, and if I go ahead and say rm place to be, it's gonna say rm cannot remove place to be because it is a directory. This is a failsafe of the rm. So you wouldn't delete a full directory because you wouldn't be able to recover it, and that would be really bad. What you can do is type in rm.f and then place to be cannot remove directory. Oops. Okay, no problems. You see, you get stuck. And I'm deliberately going to leave this part in the tutorial just to troubleshoot it. So you type in --help, and here you have recursive remove directories and their contents recursively. So that's a very nice option. So let's just go ahead and do that, because this will go into the folder and remove everything within the folder and the folder itself, hopefully. So let's just go ahead and type in rm-r place to be, press enter. There you go. It has deleted it, and there we go. It is no longer there. The -f function, -f that I have used, is forced. It will not ask you any questions. It will delete the folder or file, which can be also very dangerous. When you're using rm, you always want to be asked questions. In any case, as I said, I've deliberately left this in order to show you that even if you get stuck, don't worry about it. I get stuck all the time, and if you don't know what to type in, what argument to pass, just type in --help and take a look at what you can actually type. Read a little bit, and then use the options. Try it out. Sometimes it's going to work, sometimes it won't. But more often than not, you will be able to figure it out from the help menu. If you can't figure it out from the help menu, just type in man rm and you can read pretty much everything that there is to know about this command here. And if you really can't perform the task, but if you can't find anything useful here, then forums are your next best bet. But trust me, you will succeed in doing it. In any case, this was a brief introduction to some of the basic commands that we will use. Please make sure that you know what each one of these commands does, at least its basic functions. And then later on we will get in depth and do more advanced stuff and use more advanced commands by combining them and so on. In any case, I bid you all farewell, and I hope to see you in the next tutorial.
Thank you very much for watching the entire tutorial going through Kali Linux installation and basics of using it. If you've spent an hour here with me and Ermin already, it's clear that you will love the course on Udemy. 17 hours of HD video, complete information on all the rest of the things you could want to know before and after doing this. All you have to do to take a look at the course is visit my YouTube channel link, jerrybanfield.com/Udemy, or the direct link on my website, which is in this video description. You can then go to the course or any other of my courses, get a huge coupon to get this course for $25 instead of $199. Get in the course, and then once you're in the course, you get the real value of it. You get to start asking questions. Whatever you're struggling with, whatever you want to know, you can count on a response. Ermin is awesome about going through and answering questions. You can see within the last 10 hours, Ermin answered this question almost immediately. Scrolling down, Ermin consistently is doing great answering questions, and I even come in and answer some questions when it's relevant. You can see deep, detailed questions that are being given to Ermin to handle. He goes in, knocks out these tough questions, and gives a great response that's helpful to people consistently. All you have to do to get into this course is just go to jerrybanfield.com/Udemy, grab your coupon, or go straight in the description link of this video or on my YouTube channel. Get in to the course and you have lifetime access. Thank you very much for watching this video. I'm honored you've spent so much time with me and Ermin here, and I appreciate the opportunity to continue serving you on Udemy.